Growing up on a ranch, you quickly learn the value of a hard day's work. There's nothing like building a mile of fence out in the hot sun. That, I think, is just a part of all of agriculture. It's a lot of work. My great-grandfather had a big ranch in South Texas in a town called Falfurrias. And in the 1930s, he lost most of that ranch. And my grandfather decided he wanted to live in Colorado and bought the first piece of the ranch here in 1950. He raised a family here. They had 6 children, and each of the children ended up with part of the ranch. My father was Dale Lasater, and he was a very eclectic person. He was a Fulbright Scholar. He went to Princeton, and after that he worked in the corporate world and then decided he wanted to run the family ranch. He really loved the prairie, and that's how he got involved with what's generally called holistic management of the land and this rotational grazing concept. Make the land better, make the cattle more efficient using the land, and just have a more efficient operation. One thing you learn if you're in agriculture is pennies count. It's a tough business, so there's a lot of room for error, and you just have to be very, very careful. My grandfather was kind of an accidental environmentalist, I would say. He didn't like using chemicals and antibiotics because they cost money, and he understood that it affected his bottom line. So he stopped using all chemicals and all treatments for his cattle, even though all his neighbors were still doing it. But that was a purely economic decision, which ended up being ecologically sound. Whereas my father was very concerned about preserving this piece of the prairie and improving it. And over time, I think he did improve the land. There's less bare ground now. There may be a wider variety of native grasses growing here. Our grass, when it cures, has a very high protein content. So our cattle can eat brown grass in the winter and be very fat and happy. Cattle have evolved to eat cellulose. That's what they love to eat. They did not evolve to eat corn. If you look at a picture of cattle in a feedlot in confinement, it is not how they should be living. They're healthy eating native grasses, roaming the prairie. We don't have to treat our cattle with antibiotics to keep them healthy. Humans aren't getting a side dose of antibiotics with their beef. And I think the most satisfying aspect of our work is just that we are providing people with a food that they can feel good about feeding to themselves and their families. Okay. No, drink it seriously. Both hands, both hands. It's amazing to me that you would be in the food business and not want to feed your own product to your family. You know, my father taught me all of these practices, rotational grazing and the gentleness of the cattle, you know, the value of integrity, honesty, all of that. All of these aspects tie together to make our beef what it is. My father passed away 2 years ago in a horse accident, so we've been continuing on. You know, the most important thing that I can do is to just continue our high standards. And one thing you want to pass on to your children is just the integrity in anything you do. I think if you see something that's not correct, you should do something about it or work to change it. My father had a lot of ideas that he implemented at the ranch, and hopefully we can keep doing the same types of things and keep improving, because it's always a continual process of more improvement. I don't think that stops. His legacy is the ongoing business of supplying great grass-fed beef to people.